For thousands of years, our people, we followed a strict law. And that law was in harmony with Mother Earth. We followed this law for thousands upon thousands of years. By following that law, we'll guarantee the future. In just 200 years, our law's been broken. Broken badly. Look around us. Our land's burnt, our land's burning, our land's dying. What's going on? My home is the Murray River, Dutton-Gala. That's polluted. What's going on? It's time to make a stand. It's time to give back some of these rivers, some of the land back to the Aboriginal people. Give it back to the first Australians. And we ought to look after it properly. Tasmania. What a state, eh? A lot of stuff happens in Tasmania. A lot of good and bad. I've got to applaud the Tasmanian government for leading the way with a stolen generation. Finally, someone has compensated Aboriginal people. We all know the stats. We know 1 in 5 Aboriginal people have been taken away from their mum and dad. We know they've been taken away from their land. There's a lot of people lost out there. How can state and federal governments ignore this? How can state and federal governments ignore the pain that Aboriginal people are experiencing here in our own country? The game's up. I asked Gavin Jennings, the Minister of Aboriginal Affairs of Victoria, to stop mucking around, stop pushing around with his cash, and start compensating Aboriginal people, start compensating the stolen generation today.
Genocide takes many forms. I don't know if many of you here have read the Genocidal Act that's put out by the United Nations. But one of the main things in the Genocidal Act, I think it's Article 2, is that assimilation, or a policy of assimilation, is a genocidal act. 2 years ago, Johnny Howard came out and said the Indigenous people have to assimilate to Australian culture. That is a genocidal policy.
Shame!
By the very act of assimilation, you lose language, you lose culture, your cultural heritage is stolen off you and your cultural artefacts are destroyed. That's what assimilation means. And we are constantly under pressure. We are constantly put against. We have the highest mortality rate for children under the age of 5 of any Western country in the world. It's comparable to some third world countries. We have deaths in custody 10 times the national norm. We have our elderly dying 20 years younger than the national norm. And that's what's happening. And why is it happening? Because the infrastructural services aren't put there for the Indigenous people. The land isn't given back to the Indigenous people. The health services aren't there. The social welfare services aren't there. So we are constantly dying. When the invasion started, the estimates by anthropologists is 6 to 9 million Indigenous people in this country. Do you know how many there is now? Actually, in the last census taken, there is 140,000 people. 140,000 registered blackfellas in this country. That is an attrition rate of 45,000 deaths a bloody year since the invasion. Enough is enough. No more genocide, no assimilation, and give our land back to us.
Received a text message, and it's just a text message, but what it says is, stop press, Attorney General to charge Hurley with manslaughter. been heard, the public sentiment has been heard, and Chris Hurley is going to be charged with manslaughter.
Today we're here to speak about and pressure the governments of this country to do something about the continuing incidents of black deaths in custody. The decision of the Queensland DPP, we can see that the people in this country want to turn a blind eye to this issue. Yet the Beattie government knew something was wrong because they commissioned a report from the Department of Aboriginal and Indigenous Issues up there to look into the lives of Aboriginal people in that state. And the findings were shameful, and that was why they were suppressed. Because it was election time in Queensland. They were shameful in that Aboriginal people in 2007 in Queensland, a major international tourist destination as they call it, that people in this country, Indigenous people, were still living in dire poverty, and yet they cover it up. They don't want these findings to come out until the Australian leaked it recently. The author and journalist John Pilger wrote books and made films highlighting the systematic oppression and discrimination and outright theft against Aboriginal people in this country, and the establishment hated him for it. Well, he helped put the issue on the map and open the eyes up of many, many Australians and people overseas about the genocide happening in this country. The actions and events that happened around the bicentennial in 1988, the actions around land rights and black GST, those kinds of things need to be rebuilt. We've got to fight together for the things that we believe in, to put mass pressure on the government of this country, to shame them into action. Almost 20 years after the handing down of the recommendations of the inquiry into black deaths in custody, we probably have the lowest consciousness among the population of Australia today, among the government and the so-called police force, who are supposed to guarantee the safety of all members of the community, about the issue of black deaths in custody, or about any deaths in custody, which are unacceptable. Because let's face it, when it comes to Aboriginal people in this country, it's a set of rules and standards for some and a different set of rules and standards for others. As a comrade of mine in Socialist Alliance has said, Sam Watson, he said it's so clear from the way the Palm Island case has been handled that Aboriginal lives are not worth as much as the bricks and mortar at the Palm Island police station. Those who were convicted of attacking the police station were given jail sentences because they destroyed a building. They destroyed a symbol of oppression for the people of Palm Island. What about the destruction of the fabric of the community in Palm Island there? Since the murder of Mulrinji, the death of his teenage son, the recent suicide of a man who was a witness at the police lockup who heard Mulrinji's cries for help. Who's going to pay for that? That can't be replaced with bricks and mortar. We've got people organising commemorative days for police who've been killed in the line of duty. We don't have days commemorating the deaths of those who've been killed by cops when they're in the line of duty. We don't have multicoloured ribbons on sale to wear to remind everyone of the brutality, the poverty, the theft of land and wages, the deaths of Aboriginal people in appalling conditions. Why not? Are their lives so much worthless, so worthless, worth so much less than the lives of other people, than the lives of cops? Because why? Because John Howard and his ilk are continually trying to build racism in this country. Let's put a name to it. The R word, racism. The different standards if you're coloured. Legitimise different rights for different people all over again. Debates about the flag. Endorsement of the Christian right. The continuing attacks against migrants, Muslims, so-called terror suspects. These are all signs of the kind of Australia that Howard wants to create. A society that benefits the few and stuff the rest of you, even if you happen to make most of the wealth in this country, which is the workers of this country. When we march for Australian values on Australian Day, we've got to ask what values are we marching about? The people who are down the road, what are they marching about? We've got to march for equal rights for all. That's what Australian values is about. We've got to put it back on the agenda.